Hi, my name is Chris and this is Battle Nonsense. As many of you know, I've been looking into the delays that happen in Battlefield 4. Specifically the time it takes for what you do on your system to show up on the display of other players. In fast-paced first-person shooters, you want that delay to be as small as possible. I also looked into the effect of network smoothing and packet loss has on the delay. In this video we will have a look at three different things. The first one is mainly for reference, how long the difference is between a player fire his weapon and you to see him fire on your screen. The second value I will show you in this test is how long it takes between a player fires at you and you see the damage indicator show up on your screen. And the third value is how long it takes for the health value on your screen to update. Like in my previous The Real Delay tests, the goal here is to show you the lowest possible delays. If you have players with bad connections, then the delays will only get worse. So let's see what's the best Battlefield 4 can do right now. Since I've done that kind of tests in other videos and explained in detail how they work, I will be a little bit quicker here in my explanations than I was previously. Just like in my previous tests, I have two PCs here running the games at least 60 frames per second on 60 Hz monitors. Each PC uses its own fiber internet connection and I'm recording with a camera that can do 60 frames per second at 1080p. I fired 200 shots for every test and then picked 30 out of these 200. For these 30 shots I then started to count the delay on the second PC. That's, as I mentioned before, how long it takes until I see the player fire on the screen, how long it takes the damage indicator to show up, and how long it takes my health value to update to the new value. Now let's start with Battlefield 3. As we know, your client receives updates 10 times per second from the server and sends updates 30 times per second to the server. When we now look at the average values for the delay, then there is no big surprise, as we know that receiving updates from the server only 10 times per second adds a rather big delay. The average delay are 14 frames or 233 milliseconds for you to see the other player fire his weapon. The delay for the damage indicator has also an average delay of 14 frames. And so is the delay for seeing the health value decrease on your screen. However, when we look at the individual test results, then we see something interesting. These three things do not always happen all at once. They do not even happen in the same order. You can get all three at once. You can see the player fire and then a few frames later get the damage indicator, and then a few more frames later you get the health value decrease. Or you can also see the damage indicator first, then you see the health decrease, and later you see the other player fire. So these things are not in sync in Battlefield 3, and they are not in sync in Battlefield 4. So how about the delays in Battlefield 4 when you do not enable the high frequency update option? We then have an average delay of 12 frames or 200 milliseconds for you to see the other player fire. The damage indicator will appear with a delay of 13 frames or 216 milliseconds. The average delay for your health value to update is about 250 milliseconds. If you set the high frequency update option to high, which will cause that you then receive updates from the server 30 times per second and not just 10 times per second, then the average delays look like this. 5.2 frames or 86.66 milliseconds until you see the other player fire. 9 frames or 150 milliseconds until you see the damage indicator. 9.5 frames or 185.33 milliseconds until you see your health value update. So that is what you can currently get when you play Battlefield 4. But as I said in my previous videos, even though DICE finished the netcode initiative in the community test environment, they are still working on improving the netcode. So how about the CTE? I have tested this with the last patch, which is patch number 10. In that patch, the auto setting for the high frequency update option is now enforced. This means that I could only test this with 30 Hz. And the delays we get there are these. 5.6 frames or 93.33 milliseconds until you see the other player fire. 6.3 frames or 105 milliseconds until you see the damage indicator. 7.71 frames or 128.5 milliseconds until you see your health value update. So as you can see here in the CTE, the delays for you to notice that you received damage were decreased even further. That you see the other player fire, the damage indicator appear and the health value change in any random order is something I talked about with David from DICE. He is in charge of the community test environment. Even though he can't make any promises, he said that they will look into the issue, as having these things occur with different delays is confusing for the player. Another thing I talked about with him was this issue I found during my tests. As you can see, the health indicator freaks out a little if you get shot at and healed by a medkit at the same time. Again, David couldn't make any promises about fixing that, but he said that they want to get rid of that kind of issues. DICE is very happy to get issues like this reported so they can look into them and fix them. Recorded videos that includes steps to reproduce do help them a lot to find the cause of such problems. So if you have seen my Which Battlefield has the best netcode video, and after you watched this video here, then by the numbers, Battlefield 4 has the best netcode so far in the history of the Battlefield franchise. No other game has such short delays, at least when playing online, though Battlefield 4 is pretty close at the delay Battlefield 2 has in the LAN mode. So why is playing Battlefield 4 still so frustrating? There are multiple reasons. One of the reasons is what I just showed you here. Things happen out of sync or out of order. Another issue is that the servers are still degrading. This means that the longer they are running, the more resources they need. At some point they simply don't work correctly anymore, and you start to notice a bad hit registration, rubber banding, and other issues that are associated with the layman's term netcode issues. Currently servers really need to be restarted at least once per day. This is something DICE is still looking into. With the new CTE patch they deployed a new server build which includes more logging for them to find out what is going on there that causes the server to degrade. And then there's the problem with how forgiving the server is for players who have a bad internet connection or are playing outside the region. In some cases, these players do seem to have an advantage because they kill you around the corner. However, this really depends on the situation if the high pinger does have the advantage or not. It's not like players play outside the region just for fun. Many of them do not even have servers available inside their own region, so this is the only way for them to actually play the game. The only solution for this is that EA gets more game server providers around the world for better coverage. So players have servers available inside their region, so they have low ping servers available for them. Yet DICE still has to do something about players with bad internet connections causing very strange moments for players who have a good internet connection. The feature that determines how forgiving the hit registration is for players who have a bad connection is called frame history time. Yes, the hit registration is done client-side, but the server can still say, nope, you didn't hit him. And right now it seems that the server has quite a big soft spot for players with bad connections. Now this value has already been lowered a few weeks ago, and it did help with the issue of getting killed around the corner. Starting next week we will do more tests in the CTE with even lower values. The challenge will be to find the sweet spot for this value so that hyping players are still able to play the game, but don't cause any strange moments for players who have a good internet connection. I will keep you updated how that is going. And then there are the weapons. These are still waiting to be rebalanced. Reason why this did not happen already is that the isolators want to finish the fix for the visual recoil first, which has a huge impact on the weapons. They also want to get the netcode in a state where you can actually use the weapons reliably and find out how they are working and performing. The bottom line is that more great changes will come out of the CTE during the next weeks and months. I'd like to end this video by having a short word with everyone who is a tester in the CTE. Guys, please don't spend all your time on the Metro and Locker Conquest server. Take a look at the CTE news and look at what has been changed and what needs to be tested, like the new rush layouts and obliteration. Also keep an eye on the in-game chat, and when someone asks you to help them test something, then please help them. If you don't want to do that, then at least leave them alone with their testing, and don't be a complete ass and kill them for fun. The point of the CTE is after all to test and provide feedback for Dice LA to make the game better. And that's it again. If you want to reach me, you can do so on Twitter, by email, and now also on Facebook. The links are in the description. If you have questions or an idea for a video I should do, just tell me. Please consider to hit the subscribe button if you like my content, and I will hopefully see you next time. Until then, have a nice day and take care. My name is Chris and this was Battle Nonsense.